Hi guys, my name is Xuan and I'm a Math ASL student from the class of 2024. In the IB exams, I scored a 7 in Math AA, so in this video, I'll be sharing some tips on how you can score a 7 too. To start off, my first tip is to know the fundamentals. Familiarize yourself with basic concepts in math such as simple algebraic manipulation, expansion, factorization, solving systems of equations, etc. I took AdMath and IGCSE, and so has definitely helped me a lot and made it easier for me to grasp some of the concepts taught in IB math. But whether you have taken AdMath or not, if you think that you're not too confident with solving algebra or math is just one of your weaker subjects, then the only way to tackle this is to do more practice, okay? I cannot stress this enough because a lot of people tend to underestimate Math ASL as a subject, and they think that it's just an easy subject. It's just like an easy subject to score, but trust me, it really isn't, okay? Throughout the 2 years of IB, and especially in the last few months before IB exams, I did a ton of practice papers for math, and honestly, getting a 7 was not as effortless as I thought it would be. So just don't underestimate the subject. Be diligent, do all your homework and practice paper, and you'll do fine. So in terms of the type of practice papers to do, I would say that it's always best to start with textbook questions because those questions are relatively basic and allows you to understand the main idea of the topic before moving on to the more challenging questions. And obviously, always do past paper questions because those are the most tricky and challenging ones. And if you're stuck on a particular question, I would highly encourage you to try different approaches on your own first before asking for help because if you eventually figure out how to solve that question, it will really reinforce your memory, and the next time you encounter a similar question, you'll just know how to solve it instantly. So the thing about doing past paper questions is that the more you do them, the more you realize that there is a similar trend in the way IB asks their questions. One of the trends that I've noticed is how there's always going to be a binomial expansion question in paper 1 and how there's always statistics questions in paper 2. And another thing I want to point out is that usually in section A of both paper, in the questions that worth probably 15 marks, the first sub question would always be worth 1 or 2 marks, and those questions specifically, they require you to recall a small detail of a topic, and those questions are the ones that I struggle with the most. So my advice to you would be to not spend too much time on the 1 or 2 mark question and just move on, okay? Because usually the follow-up question doesn't require your answer from that question, and sometimes if you answer that follow-up question, it might also give you a clue on how to answer that first sub question. And so I want to remind you to be strategic when answering questions and to always prioritize the questions that yield the most points. Remember, your goal is to get the highest band, which is IB 7, and not 100% in your test, okay? A 98% and a 75% are both 7s, okay? So don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to just aim for the bare minimum, but you should always be strategic in answering exam papers and not get too carried away with wanting to get that perfect score, because remember, you have 5 other subjects to study for, so don't spend too much time on one subject and just getting that perfect score and ignoring all the rest of the subjects. One more thing I want to add about doing past paper is to always time yourself, especially when you're approaching grade 12, because when you time yourself, you'll be able to see how many questions you can answer within a given time frame, and this is helpful for you to know whether you would be able to finish the paper in time, and if not, it will help you to learn to prioritize some questions over the others to maximize your scores. Okay, so moving on to my favorite tip of all, Writing notes! Okay, let me introduce you to my 3 math notebooks that I've used throughout grade 11 and 12. I don't know why there's like a red notebook in the middle of nowhere, but it's okay, ignore that. Yeah, I just want to say that writing notes in class for me has been super helpful because like I forget things very easily, and I think having notes that I can refer back to is just like so nice. And generally I think writing notes in class when the teacher is explaining just helps me stay focused and prevents me from like falling asleep. And one thing I want to add is that whether you think that specific topic is like relatively simple or it's a topic that you're pretty confident in, I think you should still write down notes because you never know when you'll forget like the most basic things. And your future self will be very thankful for those notes that you've written. And one of the tips for writing notes is to treat it as you're writing notes to someone younger than you, because and like not in a way to like simplify your notes, but just to explain every step of the way in full details. Like write a step-by-step solution to like a particular like challenging question, so that like even if you know how to solve it at that moment, like 1 month later you'll forget how you reached to that answer. Even with like your working, you might not be able to understand. So like sometimes alongside my working, I will write down like words, like sentences on like how or why I decided to solve it the way I did. Yeah, and like aside from explaining every step of the way, you should also like just write down the formula that you use, maybe like the GDC shortcut, whatever it is. Like just write all your thought process down on your notebook. Okay, that is like something that has helped me significantly, especially when like I'm revising for a chapter. Another thing I like to add in my notes are like chapter summaries. They're not really summary of the chapter itself, but just a compilation of all my careless mistakes or the things that I tend to forget easily. Like I will do this for every single chapter, even like right from the start, like in grade 11. When I'm revising for my first test, I will write down all the things that I might forget, or the mistakes that I've made based on the practice papers that we've done in class. And yeah, that just reminds me of the things that I need to be more careful of. And I think, yeah, that is something that has helped me a lot. Okay, so the next tip is to familiarize yourself with the formula booklet. And the only way you can do that is to always bring a copy of your formula booklet in class, in school. Okay, because yeah, if you, in every class like practice or test that you do, when you're always referring back to the same formula booklet, you'll know like exactly which page to find the formula that you're looking for. And you'll also know which formula are not in the formula booklet, like the binomial distribution formula, I think. Yeah, it's here. There's actually like a blank space in all the copies, and I've noticed that, so I wrote it down myself, and I'm so glad I did, because this formula actually came out in our IB exams. So yeah, you never know. You should look at which formula are missing, and yeah, just make sure you know how to use all the formulas. Make sure you know which page to find which formula, so you can save time during the exam. And moving on, this is like a paper 2 specific tip. So you should know when to use your GDC, as in like which type of question requires you to use your GDC and how to use your GDC. Okay, so for this last tip, I know it can be different for everyone, but I think that using paper to like write down your notes or just like solving questions in general is better than using like an iPad, because I think for me, based on my own experience, I think using an iPad makes me more of a perfectionist, and I tend to focus too much on like some small aesthetic formatting instead of actually solving that math problem. And you'll be answering like the actual exam on paper, so it helps to just familiarize yourself with how much space you need for each question, and maybe like your handwriting might be different on your iPad and like on paper. And I know there's like one cons to this, like I know it can get messy sometimes. I know it can be a hassle to bring like a huge stack of paper to school and like back home, but like I don't know, I think that's like the most effective way. And you just, one thing that can help is like maybe to bring a folder to organize it. But yeah, I think it's worth it for me. Wait, it's not my last tip yet. I forgot about IA. So I'm not too much of an expert in terms of IA, especially in like math, and it was also something that terrified me back in grade 12. But generally, I think for IA, I would really recommend checking out this website called Classify, because on there's like a lot of exemplar IAs that you can refer to, and I use that to like help me brainstorm which topic I want to go for my IA. And after finalizing on a topic, my advice would be to not overthink it and just like start writing. The goal is to get all your ideas out and like get in with the flow, instead of like being a perfectionist and correcting every sentence like word for word. Because like, and I think, yeah, just don't do that. You should always consult your teacher for more help or advice, instead of just like dealing with it on your own, thinking that you can just make a perfect IA without consulting your teacher, because that is impossible, trust me. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to help. And yeah, I wish you all the best of luck in your studies. You can do it. I believe in you. Go achieve that Project 7.